Truth be told, my friends, I'm not really sure why I'm doing this. I feel like I've already sort of put you through the mill with the loss of Henry. And, you know, for those who might not have heard, we have two dogs. We had two dogs, Henry and Rat Dog. Rat Dog is Tootsie. And almost 3 weeks ago, we took Henry in for dental surgery, periodontal disease, and he died on the table. And it was a shock, and it was awful. And so, you know, Natalie and I were crying and sharing that grief with the community because, you know, this community has embraced our whole family, including Henry and Rat Dog. And because Henry was a rescue, we asked if everybody would be interested in helping us to fund a rescue van for the very organization that rescued Henry. I mean, they have this old van that has to be jump-started off the lot. It has no air conditioning. It can't be used in the summertime. It's just a nightmare. You know, it's a 20-year-old van that it needs to be replaced. And so we asked for like $15,000 thinking used van and some graphics. And maybe we'll raise the money in 5 days, you know. And this community raised $15,000 for the Henry van in 5 hours. And Natalie and I were just, well, I don't know that I have the words. I mean, I don't know how to say what that meant to us. And so we asked, do you want us to raise the goal? And everybody said, yeah, raise the goal. So we raised it to $25,000, larger van with the opportunity to rescue more animals. And as it stands, we are at $34,000. And so the Humane Society is going to have a van that transports rescued animals in the Henry van. You know, it's going to have his name, and I think we're going to put the words on it in honor of Henry and those who loved him. I think that's a nice caption. So we're still sort of reeling from all that. Well, and don't feel like you have to listen to this. You don't have to listen to this show. This is just an extra. This is just me talking. I opened the microphone to talk because this is in many ways my family. I mean, I guess this is just where I go. And, don't feel guilty. Don't feel obligated that you have to take this dark journey with me again. You're not going to hurt my feelings. I'll never know. It's okay. Catch the next show, and I'll see you then. All right. I'm serious. You just shut the podcast off if you don't want to be here. You know, if you're looking for a pick-me-up, this is probably not it. Anyway, we still had Rat Dog, and she was looking good. You know, she has tracheal collapse, but her cough wasn't bad at all, not like Henry's was. We figured we had at least another 2 years with her. And it was Saturday morning that we noticed she was coughing a lot, and her breathing was labored. So I took her to the animal emergency room, just about 4 miles down the road. It's a great place. They're so professional and so compassionate, and I mean they gave her next level attention, you know. And took some x-rays, and before it was all said and done, it appears that she had a stroke. And they found heart disease. I guess with heart disease, the valves don't always close correctly, and it causes opportunities for blood to clot, and then those blood clots can lodge in the lungs or in the brain or whatever. She just wasn't herself, and they said, she is exhibiting symptoms of stroke. And they kept her overnight, in this oxygen chamber. It was 5 o'clock Sunday morning. They called and they said, we'd like you to come up and just, see if she recognizes you and see if she seems to be physically doing a little better, but her breathing's really labored. Would you come up whenever it's convenient and, let's assess. And I think this may have been their way of saying, you need to come see Tootsie and make a decision. I mean, this is not their first rodeo. They're an emergency veterinarian, for Pete's sake. They see crisis cases that are life and death decisions all the time. And so, we immediately popped out of bed and put on our grubby clothes and drove straight there, and they brought her out. And I mean, she just wasn't herself, And she was doing this shallow breathing, and I think her body was just exhausted from trying to get oxygen. And they took more x-rays and showed them to us. And there was no happy ending to that story. There was no magic pill that was going to make it all right again. And even if we had a temporary reprieve in the symptoms, at any moment she could just die in our arms at home, or she could suffer. And so, unlike Henry, which was a shock, with Tootsie, we were at least given no real choice. And yet we got to make the decision. Okay, we will do this. We are going to euthanize her. We're going to be with her. We know it's coming. We are preparing ourselves. And so we have this little room. I almost feel guilty telling you the story. It just helps to talk into the microphone and, whatever. It's just there. And it's got this sort of array of soft furniture and a soft lighting. And it's obviously the place they take you when it's time to say goodbye. They ask if we wanted to be there at that moment when she was put to sleep. And there's no question. It's interesting. The only thing worse than being in the room when they put Tootsie to sleep would be not being in the room. Not being there at her last moment. And we waited in that room, and they brought little Tootsie in, and they said, "Would you like some time?" And we said yes. And I can't decide if I think she recognized us, but I don't know. I might be just projecting. And we, about 10 minutes later, said, "Okay, we're ready." We both held her and said goodbye. And, there is no good time. And then they came in, and she fell asleep peacefully in Natalie's arms. And we asked for another few minutes, and we just held her some more and cried. So it's weird, it's for a rationalist who doesn't believe in a divine plan or any of those types of things. I just think life happens, and sometimes life is shitty. Life's not supposed to be fair. There's not a fair mechanism in place. It just life happens. This was just a thing. One dog passed away, and then 2.5 weeks later, the other dog has a stroke and dies. It's just, but we couldn't help but feel like the cosmos is a gigantic prankster. And we were just in the crosshairs this year, Hey, you know what? It's 2019. Look, there's Seth and Natalie. Let's go fuck up their lives. This will be fun. So, this morning, as I get up to produce the rest of February's content for the Thinking Atheist, and there's a lot of compelling shows that are coming up. And I'm preparing a presentation or speech that I'm going to be giving around the country in the spring. I'm going to be in Texas. Let's see, I'm doing Dallas, maybe Austin. I'll be in Houston. Looks like I'm going to be in Denver in the summer. We're working on maybe some East Coast stuff. And, I don't have much prepared. Everyone's like, "What's your speech about?" I'm like, well, I've been kind of distracted. I don't have a speech written. I really need to get to work. But as I'm here, there is like a gaping hole in the day. I need to go feed the dog. No, wait a minute. No, I don't need to feed the dog. Well, it's been an hour and a half. I bet the dog needs to go out. No, the dog doesn't need to go out. I find myself looking for her underfoot. Yesterday, we took down the dog kennel, and we took the dog beds and we washed them, and I'm going to donate them to the Humane Society. And I just bought like 3 bags of peanut butter treats. I gave those to some friends that came over because they have like 4 dogs. And I said, "Look, I don't want these to go to waste." So I'm giving Tootsie and Henry treats away. It just, I mean, I guess from the outside it must look just ridiculous to you. Huh. But this sucks. This is 2019 can just suck it so far. It has not been a banner year for us. And there's a part of me, and I addressed this earlier, I think maybe in the video that I had originally done, about how sometimes I feel, for just a microsecond, I feel ridiculous mourning an animal in this way, you know. I mean, do other people go through this? I know that there are human beings who die and who don't get this kind of grief. And do people think I'm ridiculous? I become very self-conscious sometimes, you know. And I joined the Facebook group Grief Beyond Belief, which is it's this big community of people who are, you know, who deal with loss. And they actually have a section for people who've lost pets, you know. And so I'm like, well, okay, you know, I'd like to be part of that. And so I joined, and I was amazed at how many people have just a deep-rooted, down-to-the-marrow pain, and that it's not uncommon, and that it's not ridiculous. And then a friend of mine named Desiree sent me an article. I'd like to read this if I can. That was originally posted on a website called The Conversation. Now, I don't know what The Conversation is. I don't know what their thing is. But it was written by a guy named Frank T. McAndrew. He is a Cornelia H. Dudley Professor of Psychology at Knox College. I don't know anything about the author, but the words that he had written about the loss of a pet really resonated, and they really helped. And, you know, if you're one of those people who's gone through this or maybe going through this in the future, maybe it'll help you. Let me just read the whole thing. I mean, it's not that long. It's titled, Why Losing a Dog Can Be Harder Than Losing a Relative or Friend. He says, recently my wife and I went through one of the more excruciating experiences of our lives. The euthanasia of our beloved dog, Murphy. I remember making eye contact with Murphy moments before she took her last breath. She flashed me a look that was an endearing blend of confusion and the reassurance that everyone was okay because we were both by her side. When people who have never had a dog see their dog-owning friends mourn the loss of a pet, they probably think it's all a bit of an overreaction. After all, it's just a dog. However, those who have loved a dog know the truth. Your own pet is never just a dog. Many times I've had friends guiltily confide to me that they grieved more over the loss of a dog than over the loss of friends or relatives. Research has confirmed that for most people, the loss of a dog is in almost every way comparable to the loss of a human loved one. Unfortunately, there's little in our cultural playbook. No grief rituals, no obituary in the local newspaper, no religious service to help us get through the loss of a pet, which can make us feel more than a bit embarrassed to show too much public grief over our dead dogs. Perhaps if people realize just how strong and intense the bond is between people and their dogs, such grief would become more widely accepted. This would greatly help dog owners to integrate the death into their lives and help them move forward. What is it about dogs exactly that make humans bond so closely with them? For starters, dogs have had to adapt to living with humans over the past 10,000 years, and they've done it very well. They're the only animal to have evolved specifically to be our companions and friends. Anthropologist Brian Hare has developed the domestication hypothesis to explain how dogs morphed from their gray wolf ancestors into the socially skilled animals that we now interact with in very much the same way as we interact with other people. Perhaps one reason our relationships with dogs can be even more satisfying than our human relationships is that dogs provide us with such unconditional, uncritical, positive feedback. As the old saying goes, may I become the kind of person that my dog thinks I already am. This is no accident. They have been selectively bred through generations to pay attention to people, and MRI scans show that dog brains respond to praise from their owners just as strongly as they do to food. And for some dogs, praise is an even more effective incentive than food. Dogs recognize people and can learn to interpret human emotional states from facial expression alone. Scientific studies also indicate that dogs can understand human intentions, try to help their owners, and even avoid people who don't cooperate with their owners or treat them well. Not surprisingly, humans respond positively to such unqualified affection, assistance, and loyalty. Just looking at dogs can make people smile. Dog owners score higher on measures of well-being, and they are happier on average than people who own cats or no pets at all. Our strong attachment to dogs was subtly revealed in a recent study of misnaming. Misnaming happens when you call someone by the wrong name, just like when parents mistakenly call one of their kids by a sibling's name. It turns out that the name of the family dog also gets confused with human family members, indicating that the dog's name is being pulled from the same cognitive pool that contains other members of the family. Curiously, the same thing rarely happens with cat names. It's no wonder dog owners miss them so much when they're gone. Psychologist Julie Axelrod has pointed out that the loss of a dog is so painful because owners aren't just losing the pet. It could mean the loss of a source of unconditional love, a primary companion who provides security and comfort, and maybe even a protege that's being mentored like a child. The loss of a dog can also seriously disrupt an owner's daily routine more profoundly than the loss of most friends and relatives. For owners, their daily schedules, even their vacation plans, can revolve around the needs of their pets. Changes in lifestyle and routine are some of the primary sources of stress. According to a recent survey, many bereaved pet owners will even mistakenly interpret ambiguous sights and sounds as the movements, pants, and whispers of the deceased pet. This is most likely to happen shortly after the death of the pet, especially among owners who had very high levels of attachment. While the death of a dog is horrible, dog owners have become so accustomed to the reassuring and non-judgmental presence of their canine companions that, more often than not, they'll eventually get a new one. So yes, I miss my dog, but I'm sure that I'll be putting myself through this ordeal again in the years to come. I'll put that article in the description box if you want to read it for yourself, or maybe bookmark it for a future time where you might need to be reminded. I do that. I swore I heard her breathing whenever we were holding her in her arms afterwards. It's bizarre. Like, I know what she sounds like. And I could just swear it. It's just amazing, the stuff, the tricks that your brain will play on you. You know, you just expect at any moment they're just going to look back up at you and say, hey, when's dinner? You know? So we're not going to do a fundraiser. We're not going to do, you know, I just feel like for this, you know, we're going to love her and remember her. With Henry, and I've never done this with a dog before, but we just couldn't bury him. We just couldn't do it. Let me back up. It's amazing the things that you learn about yourself when you are dealing with loss in this way. Okay, I'm not a sentimental guy at all. Ask me where my high school yearbooks are. I don't know. They're in a box somewhere in some family member's house somewhere. I don't keep photos. You know, if I like the photo, I put it on Facebook. I don't have stuff. I'm not that person. I couldn't bury Henry. And I was thinking it in an irrational way. I was like, well, he was an indoor dog. We can't bury him outside. I mean, I guess logically it doesn't make any sense. You know, I can't, he's not an outside dog. He's an inside. I'm not going to put him out there. What about, there'll be, if we mow the lawn and, that's just not right. Like logically it's Henry's gone. Henry's gone. And yet there's a part of me, I've learned a lot about myself and how ritual and symbols can comfort. Okay. And we took comfort in deciding that we were going to keep his ashes. We had Henry cremated, and he's in a candle urn that sits in the mantle of the bookshelf, or inside one of the bookshelves. And it's beautiful. It's a little 5-inch candle urn. His ashes are inside, and there's a little votive candle on top. And it says, the inscription says, Henry, rescued by a few, loved by thousands. And both dogs were loved by people all over the world who took them into their hearts. And this is why they grieve with us. I've got thousands of people reacting on social media right now with words of condolence. Many of them broke into tears when they heard the news because they just took our family so personally. And we're going to do the same with the Rat Dog. I'm not going to call her Rat Dog on the urn. We're going to have it engraved with her name, Tootsie, and then we're still deciding on the saying underneath. And in a respectful way and in a comforting way, we're going to have the two candles side by side. These two companions will be together, knowing that they're both actually gone and that they're not present and that they don't know or feel or they're not aware. Their light has been extinguished. Okay. We know this logically, but seeing them together and having them somewhere under our roof gives us comfort. I have learned this about myself, and I'm interested in sort of the psychology of dealing with grief and, why does that comfort me so when I know that it's their ashes? How does that work? All I know is that for me, it kind of does work. And, I know in my mind, I acknowledge that it's, our time is gone, and we've pledged to focus on the good stuff. We will rescue again. We're going to let our hearts settle. And we have every intention, not at this moment, not as a knee jerk, not as a way like I have to have something to love right now, but here probably in the next, sometime in 2019, we will rescue another dog, maybe something that's rescued by the Henry van. Maybe it all comes full circle, and we'll bring another animal into our lives, probably two companions, and we will begin the cycle again of companionship and love and rescue and goodness and memories and all those types of things with the knowledge that life is temporary and the price that we pay for love is the grief whenever they are gone. You ask sometimes rhetorically if it's worth it. Like, is it worth it? And of course, the answer is yes. Not at the moment that you're grieving. Not at the moment when it feels like somebody ripped your heart out of your chest. No, not at those moments. It's not worth it. But you think about the thousands upon thousands of days of just good stuff. And that's what we're really focusing on, I'm sitting in front of the television and I've got a little dog on my lap and we're just chilling. And, hey, it's 9:00. It's time for peanut butter treats. And I pull the leashes out and they bounce around and they can't wait to go on a walk and go out and enjoy the weather. And I say, you want to go in the car? And they love car rides. And so they bounce over to the entrance of the garage and get ready to go on an adventure somewhere. Maybe taking them on vacation, take them on tour like I did with Henry and Rat Dog sometimes. I actually took them on tour with me once. To have so much unconditional love 24/7, a companion, someone to share life with in that way, another member of the family who is just so to its core good. It's just so good. Yeah, I'll do that again. And I'll do a rescue again. I'll never get a dog from a pet store ever again. And if you don't know why, you should Google why you should not get dogs from pet stores. And you should Google breeding puppy mills. There are responsible breeders out there, don't get me wrong. But I just don't roll the dice. There are way too many rescues that need us. And there are way too many dogs suffering in these puppy mill environments. We're going to rescue again, and that will be our next chapter. So that's what happened. That's where we are. I thank you so much for the outpouring again in almost rapid succession after the first loss, this continued outpouring of support. My wife and I tell you, Natalie, it's funny to watch her during all of this sort of outpouring of support from everybody in the atheist community, the thinking atheist viewers and listeners and family. She occasionally, sometimes because she's not an activist, she's not an atheist, she very much supports me and my right to be who I am. Sometimes she even comes out and helps me at conventions and tour stops. And, she's a tremendous source of support for me. She, unlike my mother and father, Natalie is like, you need to be who you are. And I support that. How can I help? And this mutual respect is how we work. I've had people ask me if she and I will ever do a broadcast together about how we make this sort of mixed marriage fly. and I don't know if that would really help people or not. I don't know. I mean, we might have that conversation if somebody thinks it would be interesting. But, sometimes she feels a little bit separated because she's not an atheist activist. She doesn't have that fire in her belly. She doesn't know a lot of the people that I know because she's not at conventions and she's not taking phone calls on the broadcast and she's not receiving the thousands of emails. And so, she feels a little bit sort of set off. And yet when we had these losses, she was front and center watching this tsunami of support come in from people who didn't just say, Seth, we're sorry and we love you. They said, Seth and Natalie, we're sorry and we love you. And she was just covered in your love. It spoke to her and it fed something in her. I've gotten a few messages, from the family tree, but honestly, almost all of the reminders of goodness and the love and support have come from these godless people. These people who are good because it's good to be good, because they have goodness inside of them already. They don't require any of this other baggage, because they are filled with love and compassion and empathy and concern, and they want to be a part of the healing. They share the grief and they want to be a part of the healing, and they are atheists. I think Natalie was just blown away, and you need to know she feels that love and she is humbled by it. And I think if she could drive to your houses and hug every one of you personally and thank you and write you a note and do all those things, this woman would do it. She would do it. And I would too. So forgive more bad news, my friends. But as it's kind of a major event, and because I had shared so much of Henry and Tootsie with everybody for so many years, because you share the journey and you share in the sense of loss, and because I didn't really know who else to talk to, because you're the people, you're who I talk to. I just wanted to open this microphone one more time and say, this is what happened. This is where we are. And thank you. And we love you. I mean, I am wrapping my arms around you as best I can. And that's what it's about, being there for each other. Living the human experience with its ups and downs together. When something gets torn down, we build back up together. You remind me of how much good there is out there, I tell you. You remind me how much good there is. And if you ever think you didn't make a difference and that it doesn't matter, you just remember that you've changed our lives for the better and that you have become our family. So from Natalie and me, we thank you. And here's to better days. Please let there be better days and a brighter few months ahead as we get into 2019. You take care and go hug your dogs today. Just hug them. Spend time with them. Seize the day because the days are so precious. And thanks again. See you soon.